Haz is the amazing founder of Pally, a social OS platform that is like WhatsApp, but supercharged by AI.
I started Pally because I realized the value of relationships and connection. And traveling around a lot, I realized how hard it is to actually stay in touch with the amazing people that you meet. Social media today, it's not social, right? It's a place for entertaining. You sit there, you swipe, you scroll, you waste hours seeing people you don't even know. I think it's entertaining, but it's not connection.
He has always been an entrepreneur, starting his first business at 15.
I didn't do the things the other kids did. Like, I started working at 14 and that took my weekends away. I then started a company which took my evenings away. Like, at the end of the day, all I was doing was basically working.
The buzz around Pally is palpable. Pally is backed by the top angel investors from the tech industry and has built a wait list of over 15,000 people.
There's been some amazing highs. I got to go to Richard Branson's private island.
Yes.
Growing up, I was 14, convincing my mum that I can drop out of school, and pointing to Richard Branson as a famous British entrepreneur, being like, Richard Branson never finished school. To think that 10 years later, I'm then spending a week with the guy, having dinner, chatting about like education and spirituality is just wild.
Without further ado, it is a pleasure to welcome Haz, a wonderful entrepreneur and friend, to the podcast. Before we get into the bulk of the podcast, what I like to do is analyze people a bit by their bubble tea choices.
Ooh.
So you went for, what did you go for?
I went for the matcha bubble tea.
Yep.
With the coffee bubbles. Yeah. It's good. Is this a bad time to say I don't like bubble tea?
Yeah, no, you know what? Be honest. It's the real podcast.
I'm not a huge fan of bubble tea. I have this weird thing where like I don't like mixed textures in food.
Are you one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's people like that.
Yeah, like the bubbles, they confuse me. And then like it's same with like soup with bits in it. I don't like soup with bits in it.
So you've always got to have it like pureed,
Yeah.
like a baby.
Yeah, exactly, like a baby.
No, fair enough. We won't
but
hold
it
it
tastes
against
good.
you.
It's
It's just a mixture of
it's the
textures.
yeah.
It's throwing you off
Yeah.
a bit. But yeah, matcha, I thought, tells me you're a cool, calm, collected guy. Also that you're quite cultured because matcha's, from Japan. And yeah, I know you've traveled around. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent time, obviously around the UK, but also in Europe and America. And I spent time in Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. So definitely have experienced lots of different cultures and also Asia and Thailand and so on, more on a personal level. But it's been fun. I think that what I really love about traveling is, I guess, actually the consistency of the human experience. So it was funny, when I went to the Middle East, I expected a far different experience to the one that I got. You hear about how different the Middle East is.
Yeah.
Actually, the people are just like us.
Yeah, everyone essentially is the same. We all have the same needs as humans.
Same needs, the same fears, the same insecurities, the same loves. And ultimately, I think when you realize that we are all just one community worldwide. And so that's a really nice realization that actually I didn't have before, but by traveling definitely learned.
Yeah, I totally appreciate that. And did your travels inspire you to start Pally? Like, how was your international experiences woven into what you've built today?
Yeah, 100%. For me, I started Pally because I realized the value of relationships and connection. And traveling around a lot, I realized how hard it is to actually stay in touch with the amazing people that you meet. Social media today, it's not social, right? It's a place for entertaining. You sit there, you swipe, you scroll, you waste hours seeing people you don't even know. Yeah. Now, there's a place for that. I don't mind it. I think it's entertaining, but it's not connection. And so I think now the world of social media has become about entertainment. It opens up this opportunity to focus on connection. And realizing how painful it was when it's, realizing how easy it is to lose these relationships and how important they are to us. I wanted to try and build Pally to ultimately solve that problem and build something that is about building deeper relationships. Yeah,
I totally appreciate that, because some research on the National Institute of Health show that, one regret of the dying is not staying in touch with, their loved ones. And people are getting lonelier and lonelier in this generation. So like how, using those statistics, how important is it for people to build connection?
Yeah, well, I think so. I think the other study that I always point to that I think is the most important one is the Harvard study of adult development. This is the longest study of all time, and it basically researched how different parts of someone's lifestyle affects their longevity, how long they live. By far, the biggest difference was how many deep, meaningful relationships that they had. More than smoking, more than alcoholism.
Exercise, like, can you? Yeah.
And yet, social connection was more important than all of these things. You could be a smoker your entire life, and still, that's better for you than not having deep relationships. And when you realize that, you realize how much of just social creatures we are. It's embedded within our DNA. And so it's crazy when you look into the science around this, just how important it is to have that social connection.
So do you really feel that you're actually solving a health issue as well? Like,
for sure, I think so. I think that people don't see it like that. And I don't pitch ourselves as a health tech company, but absolutely.
Yeah. And I kind of got this from the Stephen Bartlett podcast, but he really likes to delve into people's childhoods to understand why they do what they do now. And is there any element from your childhood that you can pinpoint, or experiences you've had, that you think this is why I'm building Pally?
Probably. I mean, I didn't know how prepared to go. I didn't know to be prepared to go so deep. I think in this.
This is the real.
Let's do it.
Let's go for it.
So I think that what made me into an entrepreneur in the first place was when I was 12 years old. And before that, I grew up in a very comfortable middle class, frankly, probably upper middle class, wealthy family. My dad earned a lot of money, and we had a good life. We had a big house. We lived with my grandparents. We're in the same house. So we had like a 7-8 bedroom property.
Whoa.
Loads of land. And like had a good life. But like at that age, you don't really understand it. You know, you're just kind of living life, and it is what it is. At 12 years old, my dad left, and he took everything with him. He was very smart to make sure that my mom didn't really get anything in the divorce. So we go from living in this incredible property to like a 2-bedroom apartment that my mom couldn't afford to pay rent for.
Really?
And that's just kind of as you're old enough to really recognize the privilege that you had, and then it's all taken away.
So you've really lived both sides of the...
Definitely. And then I think when that happens, you do what anyone does in that situation. My sister, my brother and I, we all stepped up. We Google, how do you make money? Like, this is what you do when you're 12 years old and you realize money is now important. And the two options were like, be a drug dealer or be a business owner. I decided being a business owner was probably a better option. So I Googled and I researched, and I was like, what even does that mean when you're 12, 13, 14 years old? You're like, I don't even know what that actually means. So that really began my obsession for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
But I also think began my obsession with understanding relationships.
Interesting.
So like how relationships break down and the impact that can have on, lives and families. But then also I saw my mum and my family, like I don't think we were ever very good at maintaining friendships.
Fair enough. You or just your family in general?
Our family, like, and seeing that with my mum, like especially, I realized the impact it had on her life. And so when my dad left, and then all of a sudden she needed to really fend for herself, often that's the time that friends step in and
to be that community.
100%. And in the end, she did manage to have some great people help us, but like I don't think she had also herself would say that she prioritized friendship enough until that moment. So yeah, I think for a number of reasons that was one thing I can definitely point to and say this had a big impact in my arc of becoming an entrepreneur in this space. The other thing I think is then actually growing up and being in my teenage years. I didn't do the things the other kids did. Like I started working at 14, and that took my weekends away. I then started a company which took my evenings away. Like at the end of the day, all I was doing was basically working. My friends were out chilling and going to the park, and I did some of that, but like nowhere near as much as the other kids. It went so far even when it was becoming time to go to college. All my friends were going to this one college, and again, the easy choice for me would have been to just go with them. But I had to be contrarian in that moment and say, I need to prioritize my business and what I'm trying to do over here. And I didn't do that. And I lost a lot of friends.
I was just about to say, did that impact your friendships?
100%.
Yeah.
I lost so many friends because when you're not seeing each other every day, like it takes a lot of effort. And especially at that age, like when you're 16, you realize that people don't really put the effort in. Like, it's just not, it's
when
not
you're not
quite,
in that vicinity,
you know, even close friends who were like best friends of that time, I really did lose connection with. One or two of them I've now gained it back years later, which is nice, but like, yeah, it's a shame. I think then there was a period of like probably 6 years, a pretty long time, from sort of 16 to 22. I would say I really had no friends. Like, not really. Like, because the problem is I was in this world where everyone I was around was like 30. Because I was working, I was building companies, I'd worked in finance in that period of time as well. And so, like, you can be friendly, but I think that proper friendship, it's hard to then build when you have such different life experiences. These guys and girls are getting married and
they've got
having
maybe
kids.
families.
Exactly. And I'm 17. It's just completely different stages of life. So I was, again, lucky enough to over time build some of that. And I think also some of the people I met in that period of time, when I then became 23, 24, 25, and they were 26, 27, 28.
Then you can start. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think now I've got some really good friends that I made in that period of time. But back then, it didn't feel like they were. So, yeah, I think my journey into building a company to help with the relationships, there's a lot of stuff there that has probably led me into caring about this so much. Are
you like trying to solve the problem you had, you know?
100%. I think every entrepreneur should try and do that. I don't think you should. There's some situations when you might want to solve a problem you don't understand or not don't understand, but haven't experienced too much. But I think the best companies come from people who are solving their own problems. Yeah.
I definitely think friendship is so important. That's a very big thing for me. And then, when I've seen situations in life, people not prioritize friendships, I can see people get so lonely. Like I've had, some people at school, when they had relationships, not really talk to their friends much. And then when, let's say, the relationship didn't work, they try to come back to their friends and their friends are just kind of not there anymore. And I remember feeling like really sad for that. I think friendship can be like this beautiful thing. And sort of, what's your definition of being a friend and friendship now?
Now I'm very lucky to have some really close friends, and it's people who I can turn to when things are going really bad, and they will be there for me, talk me through what's happening, sometimes be positive, sometimes give me tough love.
Fair enough, yeah.
But I think it just takes effort on both sides, and it's people that you can relate to and spend time with, but there's no shortcut. There isn't. You can't just become best friends with someone overnight. It takes effort, it takes time. Frankly, more than anything else, it just takes spending time together.
Yeah.
There's just no substitute for that.
To it.
I think the only shortcut, and something that I try and do, is be vulnerable. Like, if you can be vulnerable, you can build that connection far quicker. And that's a great place to be. Yeah. In fact, I read a book, The Power of Vulnerability, when I was like 17. Changed my life. It really changed my life. And in terms of the way I manage people, in terms of the way I manage myself, make friends, live life, I try and be as vulnerable as possible in as many situations as I can, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, wow. I really, really appreciate that. Kaz, what are your long-term goals for the Pally app?
My goal is to become the biggest social platform in the world. I want to help people everywhere build deeper, stronger, more meaningful relationships. I want a future where you can travel to any far-flung corner of the world and very quickly build belonging, build friendships. And I want a future where we're just one community. There's not like these divisions of countries or political parties or anything else. I just want us to be one species working together and loving one another. So that's a big dream. And people might say, like, how is an app going to help you get there? But I think it takes technology, and I'm not just saying it will only ever be an app, but my dream is for that to be the future we work towards.
And your technology is making it more efficient for friendships. And do you have any like top tips for friendships in a practical sense, and how your app is helping to sort of shape more meaningful connections?
Sure. I think definitely in the very first, like 0 to 1, becoming friends with someone, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be there for them, and you want to understand really who they are as a human being. Something else I think is really important is don't have an agenda. I hate that people differentiate what is like networking
and friendship
from building relationships. And I don't think necessarily friendship, but like building relationships. Like networking to me is almost like this definition of you're going to meet someone because you want to get something from them. What a rubbish definition, like what a rubbish approach to have in life. Like get to know someone because you want to get to know that human being. Every single human being has a really interesting story, interesting viewpoints, their own lived experiences. Get to know them for them. And who knows what can then come of that. Maybe you work together, maybe you just become best friends, whatever, maybe something else. But don't go in with the intention of just trying to get something from them.
Yeah.
So that's number one. And first and foremost, how I try and approach every relationship is you have to just focus on building that with the human being in front of you. To do that, you can be vulnerable with them. You can not ask shitty questions. I hate the question, what do you do? Yeah. I now try and avoid answering that question. If I'm in a networking event and someone's like, hey, what do you do? I'm just like, change the world. What's your biggest fear? Like, I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about something that's actually meaningful, that's going to help me understand who you are as a person. And that is another thing, is like, don't go in with the surface level stuff of what do you do. Like, be more creative. Try and ask something that people won't necessarily expect you to ask them. So that's number two. And then, like, let's say after the fact, it's about actually following up. You meet so many amazing people day to day, week to week, at different events, in life, on the tube, wherever. But the chances are you never then reach out again. And I think that's so sad. Even if you build like a really interesting connection and you do all of those first things right, and then you never speak again. And how sad is that? Like, who knows what could have come of that relationship? And so then it's about, how do you reach out after the fact. Now you can trust yourself to remember, you can write down a note, or you can just connect on Pally, and then Pally can remind you. So, you know, this is something that we try and do, is sort of prompt people to reach out at the right time. And that can be, of course, just sort of a period of time after meeting someone, but also if something important happens in their life, if it's their birthday, is the classic one, or if someone gets a new job, or they visit your city, or something important happens in their life, you can reach out and say, congratulations, let's go celebrate. And so I think that's the sort of second part of this, is then keeping that recurrence of contact, making the effort to spend time with the person, like, and also just don't be a flake. Like, I think if you're going to commit to seeing someone, go and see them, but don't say you're going to go see someone and then don't see them.
Because the thing is, I think friends should be understanding of one another, but I think if it happens too many times, like, it becomes
especially in the earliest days. I think once you're truly
established
friends with someone, it makes fine. You can be more flexible. But I think being reliable in the early days is important.
I totally appreciate that, being a reliable friend, but everyone like wants to have people they can depend on, that they know will be there for them. That's kind of what you really kind of want from a friendship. And funny, to touch on the networking thing, I've always hated the term networking, because I always felt it was like to gain something from someone. It just felt really sleazy, and something I was just like, no, networking is not my thing. But then a friend told me that, like, it doesn't matter. She was like, if I'm there to get something from someone, they're there to get something from me. I've got my friends. I don't need another friend. All I want to do is see where we can mutually benefit each other. Like, what do you think of that approach? You know, that maybe not everyone you network with is going to become this deep friend.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that everyone has their own approach. And if you're coming into this thinking, I just want to get something from this conversation, I think if you're upfront about that, I respect it. If you aren't upfront about it, then maybe that's a bit shady. In terms of my approach, I personally don't like to go out and try and just get something in return. I think, so I won't judge other people for doing that, but I don't like to do it myself.
Fair enough. Yeah, makes sense. So the next sort of section of the podcast I'd like to get into is how you actually built the Pally app, because we want the aspiring founders who watch this podcast to have these actionable insights they can take away, let's say, if they want to build their own app. So the first question is, do you code?
I do.
And how did you learn?
Just because I wanted to build an app. And so I learned how to build an app, just watching YouTube videos and things like this. But I don't think you have to code to be able to start a company and build an app or build any kind of technology. But you need to be able to either code or recruit, right? You need someone who can build stuff. And so it's, how do you go out and find them? Ideally, you have a good friend, someone you trust, and someone you want to start a company with and have a similar problem with you. That's obviously ideal. But what if you don't have that? And a lot of founders find themselves in that situation. It's the classic problem. It's like, I'm a non-tech founder.
How do I've
got this great idea, but I don't know how to build it, so I need someone who's going to come build it with me. And it's an age-old problem.
Yeah.
And like my answer to it is a bit of a rubbish answer. It's a bit of an answer that people don't like to hear. It's like, you need to be good enough to find someone who wants to build it for you.
Yeah, to be on that level as them. You can only find people on your level, right? Like, it's...
Exactly. And if you can't recruit, that's your, basically, let's put it a different way. This is your first problem as an entrepreneur. And if you can't solve that problem by finding someone that wants to build it for you or with you, then you failed. You failed your first challenge. And so you don't deserve to go on to build the company because you haven't solved the first problem. By the way, I didn't solve this first problem. I was lucky enough to be able to go out and raise some money from previous people I used to work with and then pay developers.
To do that's amazing.
No, it wasn't. It was rubbish. It was a stupid decision. Never do that.
Never do that.
No, I think hiring an agency in the early days is the worst thing you can do.
Even a good agency?
Even a good agency. There's no good agency exists for 0 to 1 as a stage. Because guess what? Your idea at 0 is the wrong idea.
So you got to know the problem a bit more, know your users a bit more. Yeah.
Well, it's just impossible. It's just, I think whatever you think your product will be, it will never end up being that thing in like 99.9% of cases. And so what's going to happen is you're going to go out, you're going to pay this agency 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand to go and build this thing.
Yeah.
And they'll build it well.
But it's just not the right thing.
But it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
And so what happens then is you then go to the market says, don't want this. So then you go back to the agency, it's like, yeah, okay, we can build that. Of course we can. It's another 60 grand. And then you do that again, and then it happens again, and then it's another 60 grand. So that's 60 grand you could have spent on hiring a CTO for a year to work with you instead of doing this thing in 3 months. And then in that year, you can work hand in hand, speaking to users every single day, building the thing they actually want. And your idea at the end will be completely different to what you started with. And it'll be okay because you have someone now who's been on that journey with you and had those learnings with you. You don't get that with an agency. You'll never get that with an agency. Agencies can be good for 1 to 10. I've got an idea. I've got traction. I've got people who want to use it. I know how to scale it. Now I just need to scale it fast. That's when they can come in. But that's way down the road in terms of like an entrepreneurial journey. So I made the mistake, right? I made the mistake of just paying an agency, and then it took me like wasting 60 grand and building the wrong thing to realize more money than I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
So we're talking about mistakes. There's the first one. You know, to see that we built the wrong thing. In the end, I then ended up spending the time to actually hire a team and find the right people to come on this journey with me. And that changed the game. You know, since we've had the team embedded, we've got everything right. We've gone through the right process. And now we're reaching a point that we're sort of reaching product market fit.
Nice.
And that's only because we have the internal team. We would never have got here with an agency.
It's funny because I was just chatting to Isabella from Local Meal about the same problem, but because I had the same problem too, got an agency, thought could build the app, but we thought it went wrong because it was like a cheap agency. But it's actually anything. It's good to know that it's not good. And she was discussing that it's really important. She got to know her users in the time when they sort of run out of money to like really get to know who the community was and what they were building for them. So the next thing we're going to play is a Never Have I Ever, but the technical edition. So if you have done what I'm about to say, you drink, and I'll play along with you. So,
all right.
Never have I ever attended a hackathon just for free food and other swag.
Yeah.
Oh, really? No, I've never done that. But please tell me how you've...
Well, not to like just for that reason, but I wasn't there to hack.
What were you there to do?
Say hello, hang out, say hello.
Okay, fair.
Like it was my friend running the hackathon, to be fair. But it was a good experience.
Fair enough. Alrighty. So never have I ever used "it works on my machine" as an excuse for a bug in the code.
Have I used what, sorry?
Never have I ever used "it works on my device" like as an excuse to...
Yeah, 100%.
Fair enough. And never
often it's true though. It's like it works on my. What is going on over here? That's causing it to not. It's not a lie. It's like it does work on my machine.
You might have a bug, but it works for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think often what I realize is browsers. Browsers are the bane of my life right now, where like something works absolutely perfect on whatever browser I'm using it, and then someone will open it on Firefox, like Firefox right now.
Who's using Firefox?
Like, well, apparently people.
Oh.
And then it doesn't work, like something doesn't work on Firefox, and I'm like, oh, that's annoying. How do I? And then that's a problem I don't even know how to fix. I'm like, what do I do? So now I have to research how to fix something for that.
Firefox.
Yeah.
And it's probably annoying because it's probably a problem that's not coming up
again,
but just in case it came,
exactly.
you've got to like Yeah. So never have I ever pitched my startup to someone while standing in line or waiting for public transport.
Definitely standing in line.
Yeah. Thought so. Yeah. Fair enough. And the final one is never have I ever been overly proud of a piece of code only to find it cringeworthy months later.
Yeah.
And share the details.
I mean, even the first so I built the web app for Pally. Our web app is focused on helping people plan events, and it's just this constant journey of improvement. And like the first version we put out, I really liked it when I did the designs in Figma, and then I sort of built the code, built the web app, and it just didn't feel on brand for where we were pitching Pally to be. Like we were pitching Pally as this really professional, like kind of superhuman vibe of like prosumer kind of software where it's professional and it's mature. It's not designed for like a 17-year-old to come in and love it. The 17-year-old can come in and like it, like you know, it can look clean and they can like it, but also the 40-year-old should come in and really love it. And then how do you, often I think some Gen Z designs don't fit into that category, and I think to begin with it was too Gen Z. I liked the designs, but it didn't quite fit with where we were going. So I'll come back to the designs, but it's because the code was me designing that stuff. And so now we changed it to something that I think is more clean. Now I think it's a bit boring. I want to add a little bit more fun into there. So it's finding that right balance.
Yeah. And I actually forgot I should have drank to cringeworthy code as well. I went on a Google female hackathon thing.
Nice.
And then me and my team, we coded this like really interesting thing we thought was really cool. We went first. And we were like, wow, that was really great, guys. It was the worst thing ever. Like, we're so glad we went first. But yeah, so I should have drank to that one as well. So the next one is hiring as a young founder. So you have led teams of 200 people when you were CFO at a company. Like what challenges came about with that?
I mean, it's crazy. You know, I was 22. I was hired as the CFO. I had a team. My direct reports were 25. Every single person in that team was older than me. I had finance, HR, procurement, IT underneath me. And like going into that situation is interesting because people will look at you and they'll be like, what the hell is going on? Like, who is this child being put in charge of us as CFO? And it's fair enough. Like, that's absolutely understandable. So how I approach this is, actually, it comes back to when I sold houses when I was 14, and it was very similar. You would turn up and people were like, what the hell, who is this kid trying to sell me a house? So my answer to that was to be as prepared as possible. So when I went around that house with them and people asked me questions, I actually knew the answers. I wasn't like some 30-year-old estate agent who would just bullshit, which is what they would do because they could. I actually needed to know the answers. And so they would be like, what's the area like? And I could ask them like, why are they interested in this kind of place? And they have 2 kids and they want to go to school. And I'm like, great, well, this is the school. This is how it's rated. This is the other option. This is what's better about it or worse about it. Then they could ask like about, let's say, doing some work to the property. I say, okay, well, taking this wall down here would cost about this much. Sorting out the electrics would cost about this much. They would ask me about the owners. But the idea was I had the answers they were looking for. By the end of the viewing, they didn't care how old I was. They had forgotten how old I was because I was prepared and because I knew the answers. My approach to management is somewhat similar in that, like, you have to know your stuff. Like the reason, but they you kind of do, right? They've hired you because you have the experience. They might doubt you have the experience to begin with because based on your age or how you look or whatever, but it doesn't mean you don't have it. But what I don't think you should do in that situation is come in and just like assert your
because you've got to be kind of sensitive to this fact that you are,
Yeah, and so my approach has always been to build relationships first, funnily enough. Always comes back to relationships. And I would sit down and I'd really want to have time with every single one of my direct reports. Who are they? What's their ambitions? What do they care about? Why are they even working here in the first place? What problems do they see? And one of the main things I'm looking to do there is also to find the quick wins. Yeah. So if someone comes in and is like, I don't like this, the food we have in the vending machine. Great. The next day I've got a new vending machine. Like the things that you can fix really quickly, fix them. And like instantly then you're building that goodwill with your team.
They know you care. They know
Exactly. You're actually trying to listen to them. And a lot of people just, by the way, don't even ask in the first place. They don't even, like, managers don't even take the time to really spend the time with their team and say, like, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Why are you even here in the first place? What's your dream for 3 years' time if you're still working here?
Because everyone has a reason why they're doing something, even if it feels not related to their wider life ambitions. There's always like a reason, you know?
Exactly. And so that's sort of step one, is really try and understand them as a person. When you have a big problem you then need to solve, I do think you should consult with your team, and you should say, like, okay, guys, this is the situation. Let's talk about it. Let's work out what you guys suggest. You spend time hearing them out, and then you need to make a decision. Maybe that's actually an unpopular decision. Everyone said you should go left. You've decided you want to go right. The point is, though, when you say that to the team, you say, guys, I've heard you, but I'm going to go this way for these reasons. The point is they respect you because you've actually heard them out, and they understand that at the end of the day, it's your decision to make, so that they'll accept it. But I think you should have gone through that process of understanding them and understanding their fears and needs and wants. And sometimes you'll make the wrong decision, but because they know you've heard them, I think
you've taken it into
a lot.
consideration. Yeah.
So it's often this implicit power I think you build by having those strong relationships, and by honestly them knowing that if they want to speak to you, they can, and if they have a problem with something you're doing, they can. So generally my advice would be to, like, just get to know people as human beings, actually build those relationships with them, but don't be scared to still wield your power if need be, and make the right decision for what you think is the right decision. Yeah,
I totally appreciate that. And the next element of this podcast is going to be surrounding finances.
Okay.
So the youngest ever chartered accountant, I feel like you probably have your eye on the ball on the financials of Pally. So I want to know how you initially kind of touched on it before, but how do you go about financing the app?
Yeah, so when I first raised money for Pally, we were about 2 months in maybe. I had done like some initial experiments. I had my thesis over, like, this is the problem I want to solve. This is how I'm going to solve it. We had solved it in like a really lo-fi way, where I had basically used Excel to build a product, if you want to call it that, and solve people's problems. So we had some traction and we had some proof that this worked, but now we needed to build an actual tech product that did that stuff automatically and we could scale. So I went to every single person I ever knew. I had no money. I had some money at this point to survive, but not enough money to, like, completely fund this on my own. Yeah. I had to raise some money to make this a reality. And so I did, but I had no network in VC, in tech, in angel investors. No one that I knew would, like, invest in this kind of stuff. So my journey was to basically, first of all, just map out everybody I did know.
And see who they...
Yeah, like from when I was 14 to 22, 23, like, who's every single person I've ever worked with closely enough that I could ring up or have a conversation with. And I got to a list of like 150 people.
Wow.
And this also is a benefit of then having worked in a number of different companies and stuff.
Because you build those, yeah.
Exactly. And then my job was to then, like, message all of them being like, hey, how are you? It's been a while. Like, would love to catch up and see how things are going. Then you'd have a call with them, you'd catch up, and they'd say what has been up in their life. And then you could say, I'm actually working on this new idea, and this is kind of what I think about it. Like, would love to get your advice. Never ask for money, always ask for advice. And I would ask for their advice. And then they'd say, yeah, I really like this. Like, I could have used this in this time, in this time, in this time. And then you'll say, great, actually, I'm working on raising money for this. I'm putting together a pitch deck. I've never done this before. I know you may not have either, but I would love to get your feedback on it because I really respect your opinion.
Really? So always ask for advice.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, that sounds good. Like, I'd love to give you my help. And then you send them the pitch deck, and then they come back and say, this is really good. Or have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? You make the changes, you send it back to them, and you're like, did they suggest your feedback? They're like, yeah, it did. And I was like, okay, great. Now, would this be something you're interested in investing in? And then after they're invested, because they've invested the time in helping you, and I'm not saying that you should have gone into that conversation hoping to get there in the end. It can be an option, but also some people were just like, you know, I don't invest. But I was so amazed at the number of people who were like, yeah, I'll be interested in putting money into this, or no, but you should speak to this person.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So that 150, in the end, 24 people invested £100,000 to kick us off. So that's how I went about raising that first money. It was crazy as a journey. I didn't expect I was going to be able to do it, honestly. I really didn't from my network, but it was purely people I knew. So there was no one new coming into that round that I had not either pretty much worked with or knew in my life from before that. So it wasn't a classic fundraise where you go out and you like meet new investors and you try and raise money. It was purely from my network in terms of raising that initial capital.
That's really interesting advice, like helping people be on board with the idea, invested in the idea, because I think as soon as you ask someone for money, they're like, whoa. Yeah. You know, I don't know this idea. I don't know what you're doing. Like, and it can be a quick no, even if maybe if they did know a bit more, they might have been inclined to act a different way. So what do you use the money for on a daily basis or a monthly basis?
I mean, nowadays it's just purely team. Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I don't think you should spend money on marketing in the early days. Really, like, you should be focused on just team.
Fair enough. And what tips do you have for founders relating to finances and managing it?
Have a forecast.
Okay.
It could be really simple, but it should be like, okay, these are my 5 team members. This is their monthly salaries. This is my bank balance. So I run out of money then.
Cool.
At the very least, have something like that. And then you have some subscriptions and software that you need to pay for. So like that should incorporate it, but it should be extremely simple. Like 20 lines on Excel will probably be enough to cover this. But a lot of people don't even have that.
Think about that.
And they don't even know how much money they have left. And that's kind of the bare minimum. I think taking it one step further, the most important thing to look at is what you call lifetime value and your cost of customer acquisition. Yeah. This is kind of above the fold. So if we just talked about your salaries and your software and stuff like that, that's kind of your overheads or cost of doing business. Above that, you have your how much money are you making and how much does it cost you to get customers. And if you've started to build some traction, then you want to start investing money in marketing. Now it makes sense to put money into marketing because you have a reason to do that. And so what the 2 numbers you want to have in your mind is like each customer I get, how much money is that customer going to make me on average? And how much does that customer cost me to get in the first place? And if those 2 numbers are like good, so and what good means is basically your revenue you expect to make for each customer is 3 times or more how much it costs you to get that customer, you're in a pretty good situation. And this is what you want to continue optimizing for. So these are the things you'll start to make up your financial forecast, and we'll basically be able to guide you in terms of how much money do you need, like how long does that last you, and stuff like this. And
interesting. So I remember you telling me that what your app is like WhatsApp, but how does WhatsApp, or how do you plan to make money? Because WhatsApp got bought, but are you planning to be bought out? Are you going to make money while connecting people? Like how's this going?
Yeah, so WhatsApp makes money through WhatsApp for Business, which is basically something they're incorporating more and more into WhatsApp now, where like WhatsApp inbox is basically going to become a customer service hub.
Nice.
Not nice. It's going to be rubbish. Like right now it's already a mess of your personal and professional and like group chats and everything else. Imagine now you've got customer service people messaging you and like advertisers messaging you. It's going to become an absolute mess. And yes, it will make WhatsApp some money in the short term, but I think it's going to deteriorate the experience too much. So I think their approach for monetization is a really bad one. Our approach is very different. So for us, we're only focused on the user. How can you help that user have better relationships and have a better social life? And it's the second half of that that's going to make us money. And for us, what that means is we have an AI concierge in every conversation. The AI concierge learns what you like to do. And basically when you're talking to your friends, you're saying, let's go do something this weekend, or let's go get dinner, or let's find some jazz music. It can give you a recommendation that works for all of you instantly. And then you can talk to it and you could say, no, I don't want to go do that. I want to go to this other place. Gives you that place. And then you say, book us a table. It books you the table. And it all just happens for you whilst you're in the conversation.
I love that. That's efficient, because that's what is hard to get plans out of the chat because of that. Yeah.
And then we make money. Basically, those businesses then pay us for sending you to them. However, it doesn't cost anything for the user, and it doesn't increase your prices or anything like that. It's purely the same model that like OpenTable have right now. You don't pay OpenTable, but OpenTable are making $1.50 for every seat that they book through OpenTable. So it's the exact same model. Customer doesn't pay anything, business pays something.
Brilliant. So lovely to hear that model. Amazing. So the next, we're going to play like a little tech related quiz. So what technology is used for secure communication over the internet by encrypting data during transmission?
SSL?
Yeah. And I was going to give you options, but I guess you didn't need them. Alrighty. So question 2. What program language is named after a comedy group?
Oh,
Do you want the options?
Yeah, give me the options for this one.
A is Python, B is Ruby, C is Java, D is C++. And I've made a massive mistake because I can't remember the answer.
I don't know the answer for this one. I'm going to guess Ruby. I think that's the only one that sounds like a comedy group.
Right, I don't know. So you know what? I'll search it. I'll search it later. Okay, question 3. Where did the founders of WhatsApp work before meeting? Was it A, Okay, do you know?
Carry on.
Okay, A, Facebook, B, Twitter, C, Yahoo, or D, Google Play?
Yahoo.
Yeah, that's right. All right, question 4. What famous entrepreneur famously said, "Move fast and break things"?
Mark Zuckerberg.
It is. Wow. Was that 4 for 4? Well, we don't know about the the comedy group one, but I'll get back to you and I'll write the answers in the description. So let's go on to running Pally. How does your day-to-day look like?
It depends. I mean, my job at Pally is basically a combination of design, product, and fundraising and marketing. So a lot of stuff in there, and I guess on day to day it changes over what my priority is. So my favorite days are I could like lock myself away and just focus on design. However, my job is mainly also fundraising right now because we're in fundraising mode. Just about to close out our pre-seed round. So I guess otherwise on a normal day, let's say the product is designed, it's being built by my engineers. My job is getting people to use it. It's marketing in that sense. And so what that means is basically it's still relationship building similar to fundraising, but it's in a different way. It's relationship building with what we call community managers, people who are hosting events, people who are basically sort of pivotal in helping more people discover Pally. That's who I really care about spending time with and helping them discover Pally and hopefully use Pally.
So is that why you're friends with me?
The only reason. It's the only reason, Emma.
I'm joking. So the next part of the podcast is called RealiTEA, where we talk about the reality bubble teas of being a founder in your everyday life. So is there any sacrifices you've had to make as a founder?
Gosh. Yeah. I mean, before this, I worked in finance, had a great salary, had a great life, comfortable life, could go on multiple holidays a year and like live whatever I wanted to live. And now I am so poor. It's sort of month to month. You're the first person who has to give up their salary.
True. For other people, isn't it? Yeah.
And so there's a huge sacrifice there. Then there's a sacrifice in time. Like you are working 24/7. I love to work, but that is a sacrifice. You can't just go off and like chill as much as you could beforehand. I'm lucky to have very supportive family. I also have a lot of friends who are founders, and so you understand one another. And often you can like then spend time doing things that a lot of like normal people would look at and be like, "What the hell is that?" It's like you could just hang out and just work together. Yeah. And a lot of like normal people would be like, "What? Like that's a Saturday for you?" And it's like, yeah, that's great Saturday. Yeah. Like
I get to see my friend and work. Yeah.
But so I think there is a sacrifice, and it does take a certain type of person who wants to invest that time into it. But also, I think as founders, often we fall into this mistake of thinking we have the hardest job in the world.
True, yeah.
And we don't. We have a great life. You know, we get to do really exciting things, meet really exciting people. And yeah, like there are some sacrifices, but also people have it way harder, you know. And so I think sometimes tech especially, we fall into this trap of complaining, or not even complaining, just like thinking we're better than other people because we are founders. And I think that's stupid. I think that like every job has its own difficulties.
It's true.
And even if it is a 9 to 5, that still can be a really, really hard job. And people like, I think take that, or some founders think that just because it's 9 to 5 doesn't mean it's a hard job. I don't subscribe to that.
I definitely agree, because one time I was telling a friend, I was like, "Oh, I'm so busy, like feeling really sorry for myself that I have to work like all these hours." And she was like, "Amma, everyone's busy." And I was like, it really hit me that, yeah, actually I should stop thinking that this is, do you know what I mean? It just 100%. It just really like stuck with me that everyone's got their own challenges, everyone's got their own thing they're doing. So don't think you're like, your work's more important or it's harder. It's just everyone's dealing with their own kind of issues. So what are some of the biggest challenges you've had while running Pally?
Personally or professionally?
Actually, go into both.
So when I started Pally, it was also when I was just coming out of a really long-term relationship. And we talked about me raising that first 100,000. Honestly, like through that journey, it was just after I'd broken up with my ex-partner, and I think I never really had time to grieve because I was straight into fundraising, straight into trying to like build this company, and then like I fundraised, and then everything hit me because like one, I now had the pressure of actually trying to deliver something that I had promised, but two, I also had the space to like then grieve and be like, hang on, I've just lost this really important person to me.
Yeah, for a long time, yeah.
And my entire life changed. I was living with them, like we had a cat, and like then all of a sudden you're alone and trying to build a company, and I had to live back to with my sister. I was on a sofa. Like I'd gone from having a house to being on a sofa. Like so I think that hit me like a ton of bricks, and it took me like a month to recover from that. It took like because I was almost like paralyzed from the pressure and from fear, and I didn't do any good work in that month actually. It was kind of, which was even more, it was like almost a compounding thing, right? Because one, you just promise all these investors that you're going to go and change the world, then they give you the money, and then you're like paralyzed, and you can't do anything. You're like,
oh my God, wait, what happened to this guy?
Yeah, so that was tough, and then you start doubting yourself. And each day is then worse. But in the end, I had some good friends that helped me out of it. I spoke to therapists to help me get out of it. And then I was in a much better place. But I think, so that first month, I would say, has definitely was a low point. That was a real challenge, sort of personally and professionally. Personally, since then, I actually think, then like there's been some stuff with my family that was really tough. And I think whenever you have personal stuff going on, your levels of stress as a founder are high, and then the personal life, it does help if it's stable, because then you can sort of manage the ups and downs of being a founder. When your personal life is also crazy or something's happening, it can be extremely hard.
You've got nothing to
stabilize you, and so there was a moment that something went wrong with my family, and honestly it's still not ideal, but it's better than it was. And there was times I just couldn't sleep because you're just, the stress is coming from all sides. So there's always hard things. I don't think anyone's has it easy. Building a company, not building a company, like everyone is going through something. And
it's tough when you don't have that constant. It's really, really tough. Anyway, what are your highlights of the Pally journey? Let's be a little bit more lighthearted here. I mean, you don't have to be lighthearted if this is not the reality, but
no, there's been some amazing highs. I think there's probably two that stick out for me. One is I got to go to spend a week on Richard Branson's private island.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah,
that was unbelievable. This is something I never expected to happen. Growing up, I was 14, convincing my mum that I can drop out of school, and pointing to Richard Branson as a famous British entrepreneur, being like, Richard Branson never finished school,
and look where he is.
And like, to think that 10 years later I'm then spending a week with the guy, sitting across, having dinner, chatting about like education and spirituality and all of this fun stuff, is just wild. It's just crazy. So that was an unbelievable like pinch me moment of this is really happening, and it felt like a pivotal moment because I also met so many amazing people. It wasn't just me there. I was there with 40 unicorn founders, investors, and world leaders, and royalty, and celebrities, and like people that I just would never imagine myself in a room with. And even since then, they have been pivotal to my journey because they've opened doors that I never could have opened without them. And so everything is compounding, and that was a big moment that then began that compounding. And then more recently, I had the worst day. I had the worst day of my 2 years when we had some existing investors that were going to put some money into Pally, and we only had 2 weeks of runway left. But it was fine because they were going to put money in, and that was going to sustain us until we closed our funding round that we've been working on. But just was going to take a little bit longer than we had money to last us. So it was all okay. And then it wasn't, because they turned around and had a crisis of their own and had to put money aside for that crisis. And so they couldn't afford to put money into Pally anymore. So I woke up one day and had an email saying, we can't do this anymore. I had 2 weeks of money left. My team have families, and it felt like 2 weeks more, like we were longer than 2 weeks away from raising our round. And so I was devastated. I was looking into like the valley of death, being like, shit, how do I get out of this? Like what's about to happen? And I was paralyzed again, similar to I was after that month of fundraising at the very, very beginning. It was terrifying. and I couldn't do anything for like 12 hours. Just felt sorry for myself and felt depressed and laid in bed. And then I woke up at 5 a.m. and I was like, no,
I'm ready.
Not today.
Yeah.
Not today. And I was like, how do I solve this? Put together a plan, contacting my team, contacting my investors. Thankfully, an existing investor, a different one, stepped in and said, I can wire you some money, which will keep us going. So that's amazing. Thank you to them. They know who they are. So that was initially the weight off, because I could then go around and contact my team again and say, all right, guys, we're going to survive. Yeah. So after this morning, I had to email them and say, you may need to look for another job. Now I could go back to them and say, it's good, we're covered, we're going to do this. And, the round, we're going to get the round done. Later that day, I then had a different call with a new potential investor. And this guy is one of the most important people in the world right now. He's building one of the biggest AI companies in the world right now. And we're an AI company. And so but the problem with AI companies right now is everybody is apparently an AI company. And so what investors are scared of is like, who's really an AI company? Who's really doing something interesting and innovative, or who's just like this little wrapper on top of ChatGPT? And it's actually quite hard, because I don't think investors are experts in this. So how do they then know how to tell the difference? It's tough for them, which is understandable. So this is a problem, I think, that a lot of companies face, which is investors have this doubt over like, how legit really is this? Anyway, so I had this conversation with one of the best AI founders in the world right now. They're raising stupid money on like billions of dollars of valuation. And he decided to invest in Pally.
Amazing.
And so this day, 24 hours earlier, I was in bed. I was like depressed. I was scared. I was terrified. And then 24 hours later, he's like, yeah, I'm going to invest. And that has changed everything since that's happened. Since getting him in, every investor wants to invest. Everyone's calling me. Like, we're now oversubscribed in our round. And so to get that turnaround in such a short space of time is also one of the highest moments, is getting that guy to say yes. I remember I was on a call. I was in front of because I was at this conference with a community called Sigma Squared, who are this great community, but I had maybe like 50 people around who were around. And I was on this call, and I was still not in a great, I was happy that we were surviving, but I was still stressed, and people knew I was stressed. They could kind of see that. And then I have this call. I'm obviously containing myself whilst I'm on the call with this guy. But then, I finish the call, I close my laptop, and I'm like jumping up and down, like, get in, like so excited. And then everyone's looking like, what happened? And everyone comes and celebrates with me. And it was just this amazing moment of, one, actually the power of community and having those people around me, because actually it was them who introduced me to this guy in the first place. And then just the love I felt in that moment, and also getting over this hurdle where it felt like we were going to die, and then, oh no, we're actually going to survive. And not only just survive, but this is the moment that we were waiting for, that really is the catalyst to help us move forward and close this round, and then therefore hopefully go on and achieve our vision. So there's a few high moments. Richard Branson, this guy investing, it's an incredible experience. Yeah,
and to have that community celebrate with you at that time, and also that social proof of that entrepreneur, really amazing. So the final question is, do you have any advice for budding entrepreneurs?
So much. Trying to think what's the most profound or interesting that I haven't said. I really think it's important to see yourself spending 10 years solving the problem you're trying to solve. And I know people hear that, but I don't think they really internalize what that means. Like, through getting married, through having kids, through getting hopefully never divorced, or like having issues in your family or whatever, but like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, can you still see yourself wanting to solve a problem in this area? It doesn't have to be the specific problem, but in this area. Do you care enough about it? Because if you don't care enough about it, the amount of hits you're going to get that's going to knock you off course or make you give up, you're going to give up. So I think whatever that thing is for you, like whatever your passion is, like do something in that space, because otherwise you're just going to end up giving up from something that is, if you just do something because you think it's a good idea, or just because you think it's an area that VCs want to invest in, it's not enough. So build something you can see yourself doing. Build something you love, build something you care about. And also, okay, I'm going to give you a bonus one, like lead with love. I think love has a place in business. People say business isn't personal. Business is personal. It is, everything is personal. And so I think you should approach life like that, approach business like that. Well, thank you so much, Haz, for sharing your insights and the amazing work you're doing at Pally. I do really appreciate it. Thanks, Emma. Thank you. What a beautiful
and vulnerable conversation I've just had with Haz. It's really inspiring to see how vulnerability can be a superpower in helping him build the Pally app. I really do hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment and share. We hope to see you soon.